Okay, so today's phase 17, step 17, we're going to talk about the buying and selling process. This is designed particularly for those of you that are brand new licensees, or if you're in school training. We're going to go over the entire process of purchasing and selling real estate. And I'm going to guide you through step by step. So we're going to begin right now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them at the end. So you can write down some notes on the side and then ask your questions and we'll answer questions at the end. All right, let's begin. So remember, we're always talking about how top producers do the business. And that's what we're going to cover over here. So top producers takes the time to explain the process to each buyer. We're talking about buyer's process right now. How do you process a buyer from the beginning to the end of a deal? Once the buyers understand the process, they feel more comfortable, obviously, to do whatever you recommend them to do. And it's also important to understand every step in the buying process. When I meet with a buyer and I explain to them all the steps at the beginning, it is much easier for me then to get an exclusive buyer agreement signed, because the person is educated about the process. They understand the time-consuming aspect of it. And they also understand that obviously we're not getting paid until we find them something and they purchase. So we spoke about buyer's exclusive agreement last Sunday. We covered all of that. All right. The buying process in 26 steps. Just want to show you real quickly what happens. So handle the buyer call. Someone's calling you, or you receive a lead from Zillow, or you receive the referral from someone. It doesn't matter how the lead gets to you. The lead gets to you and then you need to take action. The first step is to call them. The second, well, when you call them, by the way, you need to schedule an in-house consultation. You're not just calling them to show them a property. You're calling them to book a consultation. You can do that also on a Zoom session, or you can do it face-to-face, depending on which time we're in. Right now, COVID-19, obviously, it's best if you do this via Zoom. Okay, and then we're going to go into the second step right after that. The second step includes you meeting with the buyer face-to-face, and obviously going over all their needs. So you're going to cover a lot of different questions, asking them a lot of questions, and finding motivation, discovering the situation. And at the same time, while they share with you and answer your questions, obviously, you build rapport. And that's really what sets your relationship. It's like a stepping board to the next level. And then you go to number 3, which is really signing them on an exclusive buyer agreement. So the first 3 steps in the buying process: a buyer calls you, you call them back, schedule an in-house consultation, in-house or Zoom. Number 2 is you meet with them and you actually do the consultation. Consultation is all about asking questions. If you have any questions regarding that, watch step 16 video. Okay, number 3, signing them on exclusive buyer agreement. You're actually taking out the agreement. You explain all the benefits of signing it, and you walk them through the process until they sign. Once they sign it, you start you conduct a property search based on their pre-approval price, obviously, and the price they tell you that they're looking for. Some people are approved for 300, but they're looking for 250. They don't want to spend more than 250. And we also spoke about that at step 16. So you can refer to that video if you have any questions about that. All right, the next step after you do a property search is to actually call and schedule showings for the properties you found. You schedule showings with the other agents. So you need to call, for example, I'm calling John Smith from Remax. Hey, John Smith, it's Ron Biederman at Circle100. I have a buyer that wishes to see your listing at 123 Main Street tomorrow at 5 p.m. Please let me know how I can access the property. Leave a message. Make sure that they call you back. If they call you back, or if you get them on the phone first time, book a showing. So you schedule showings. This is step number 5. Step number 6, show them only the property that fit their needs. We spoke about it in step 16 video, that when you meet with people and you ask them a lot of different questions, you will narrow down the search. And you're also going to tell them that you're not going to take and show them 35 homes, but you're going to show them the homes that they qualify for, number one. Number two, the homes that qualify for their needs. That's what we're talking about here at number 6. So you go out there, you show them some properties, and then they like one or two and they want to make an offer. So step number 7 is writing the offer, actually writing the offer. Writing the contract. In some states, the attorneys do that. In other states, the realtors do the preliminary, and then it goes to an attorney. And in some states, the real estate agents do A to Z with title companies involved. So in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, you write an offer, you submit the offer to the other agent. And number 8, as you see here, negotiate the best offer for the buyer with the seller or the seller's agent. So if you're introducing a buyer to a for sale by owner, you're going to negotiate directly with the seller. If you're showing your own listing, you're negotiating what we call a dual agency. So negotiating the offer. When you do that, by the way, there's many different steps on how to do this correctly. If you are at the beginning stage of your career, I highly recommend you to consult with your mentor. When you're actually getting an offer, let the mentor help you go through the process. That's what we're doing here at Circle. For those of you that are brand new, you're going to be assigned to a mentor who's going to help you do that. That's one of the reasons we assigned you to them. And by the way, a mentor should help you do all of these steps. Okay, how to handle a buyer call, how to meet them face to face, how to do the actual exclusive agreement, conduct the property search, schedule showings, show them properties, write an offer, negotiate. These are steps that you are going to be doing in connection with your mentor. Your mentor will be helping you through this process. All right, so after you negotiate the offer, the seller accepts the offer, the deal goes into what we call attorney review. Attorney review is 3 business days where the buyer is going to consult with an attorney. Normally, the buyer's attorney would send out some sort of an addendum to the contract or a rider, where they're going to add up or maybe change some of the preliminary offer, and send that to the seller's attorney. Once the seller's attorney accepts, you have a contract. And at that moment, you need to go to what we call inspection contingency. So the fact that you're presenting an offer and the seller accepts your offer doesn't mean you have a contract. You have a contract after 3 business days attorney review. All right. Now, if during this attorney review, the buyer's attorney, is actually changing the deal, which they do many times, they can add up some details. And the seller's attorney might say, well, I'm not in agreement with section 8B. You need to change that to this one, and then they go back and forth. So that can actually extend the 3-day business review. As long as you are with an attorney and they keep going back and forth, you really don't have a solid contract. Once it's accepted by both attorneys, then you have a solid contract. And at that moment, you need to start your TC process. Now, at Circle100, we're offering you a transaction coordinator. So you really don't need to do that. I prefer that you don't. I prefer that all of you guys, especially the ones that are new, don't do your own TC. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of, it's basically a secretarial work, a lot of follow-up, and you really should not be doing that. You should be actually going to your next deal, put another contract so that your bank account starts growing. Agents that tend to do their own transactions, the TC, tend to do a lot less deals. So depending on your goals, if you want to do less deals, do your own TC. If you want to do more deals, give your TC to a transaction coordinator. All right, so at that point, you go to inspection, you schedule inspection, you go to the property with the buyer, you meet with the buyer and the inspector. The inspector is going to spend about 2-3 hours in the property, and then he's going to come out with the inspection report, which is going to send out to the buyer's attorney. Buyer's attorney will then speak with the buyers regarding all the items that were found, and if needs to renegotiate the deal, they will do it right down in there. They'll go back to the seller and say, hey, we would like for you to give us credit for the broken window and for the old roof and to change this and to change that. We're asking for 10,000 or 15,000 credit. Seller at that time can say, F you, I'm not interested, and they kill the deal. Buyer can then say, well, we'll take it as is and continue, or we kill the deal. So when you're not out of contingency, inspection contingency, you still don't have a solid contract. Once they negotiate, or once you did an inspection and the buyer is okay with the results and they continue in the deal, then you have what we call a solid contract. The next step, you're going into the mortgage contingency, and you need to start following up with the mortgage company to see if they received all paperwork from the buyer, if they're working, and pushing through this loan to get approved. Now, step number 15. Make sure the mortgage representative is actually ordering an appraisal. Once they do, you schedule the appraisal, and you need to be there to show the property and give them some comps. I always used to send the buyer agent to the property, or I would go myself as the listing agent when the appraisal goes to the property, especially when there is a problematic deal. For example, if I'm listing a property at 345 and say we had 10 offers and the price got pushed up from 345 to 370, now we might have an issue with appraising the property. The appraisal value might come below 370. And at that time, you want to do some research and you want to help the appraisal put up looking at the right comps. So you want to print out all the comps that you see in MLS and then bring them to the appraisal appointment. You can actually offer them to the appraisal. They don't have to accept, but many of them do. It's basically saving them a lot of homework. So scheduling the appraisal and being there at the appraisal appointment. Number 16, wait for the commitment letter. Now, not really waiting, you want to actually call and follow up with the mortgage rep to make sure that it's moving along. All right. And remember what I'm telling you, and this is the beauty of a TC. You got all these different steps over here. From the moment that the seller said yes to the offer, okay, through all the steps I just mentioned, that's TC job, not your job. So if you're delegating your contracts to a TC, then you don't need to worry about any of that stuff. The TC will let you know, hey, I schedule an appraisal for this date and time. Okay, then you go there if you want to be there and give them the comps. All right, make sure the attorney orders title at 17. Many attorneys wait for last minute with that thing. I don't like them waiting, so the TC can actually push that thing through, going faster. 18, schedule the closing date and time. 19, sending them a commission bill to the attorneys with your commission right on the bill. So the TC does all that stuff, by the way. You don't need to do that. And then at 20, take the buyer on a walkthrough the day before closing or the day of closing, and then get a copy of the keys. Scheduling the walkthrough should be done by the TC. You should do the actual walkthrough. '21, go to the closing. Now, you can see what I wrote over there. Go to the closing only if you represent the buyer. I don't go to closings because I'm a listing agent, so I'm not going to the closing. I'm sending the seller a gift, or I'm going to go to the seller's house with a gift, or I'm going to, buy them dinner and take them out and just chill with the seller to celebrate them purchasing instead of going and sitting at the closing, which means, really makes no sense. If you represent a buyer, it makes sense for you to actually be at the closing, then you go. 22, buy a closing gift and hand deliver it to the buyer. This will give you another opportunity to meet the buyers and build a strong relationship. Don't have to do that, but it's recommended. And again, you don't have to buy a closing gift. You could take them out to dinner and celebrate. 23, make sure the MLS shows you as the selling agent. Sometimes, for whatever reason, listing agents tend to put their name on the MLS as the selling agent as well. Make sure that that's not happening. Make sure that your name is on. You would actually need that. Obviously, to count for your transactions. 24, 3 to 5 days after closing. Now, guys and girls, 95% of all the agents that I know don't do that. 3 to 5 days after closing, call the buyers to make sure that everything is okay and ask for referrals. Buyers are happy, they're in the house, they're situated already, everything is good and dandy. You can actually go there with your gift if you wish, or you can just go there and have just a visit, a quick visit. And then it's time for you to ask for referrals. 25, put the buyer on your past client list and keep in touch regularly so they go into your database, and then whatever you're doing with the database will happen as well with that particular client. 26, send just sold postcard to all the neighbors. This step is done best with door knocking. COVID-19 doesn't allow, it's okay, you are sending them in the mail. So you got 26 steps. And if you pay attention, the end of it is actually taking care of your future business. So yeah, the deal already closed, you got paid already, everything is okay. Now you're looking at future business, meaning number one, check that your name is on MLS as a selling agent. Go visit with the buyer like a week after they purchase, because if they have any issues with the house, you want to know about it and you actually want to take action to help them resolve these issues, if any issues arise. And then put them on a past clients list, keep in touch, and send a just sold postcards to all the neighbors. You sold the house. The fact that someone else listed the house doesn't mean anything. You are allowed to send a just sold postcard with your name, with your face on the postcard, telling people this house was sold by me for $239,000. If you want to sell your house for top dollar, contact me with your information. So you're always using your sales to attract more sales. All right, let's look at all these steps real quickly. Schedule an in-house appointment, meet and understand their needs, sign a buyer exclusive agreement, schedule showings, do the property search, and then show the properties. Write an offer, negotiate the offer, meet the appraiser, order the appraisal. Well, order the appraisal obviously comes before. Wait for the mortgage commitment, confirm title is ordered, send the commission bill, schedule closing, and then schedule your walkthrough, go to the closing, call the buyer and ask for referrals, buy and hand deliver a gift. I'm telling you again, I think the best celebration is taking them out for dinner. That's my opinion. Verify MLS status, shows you as a selling agent, then insert buyer into past clients list, and then mail just sold postcards. Following up. Obviously, following up, we have an entire video on that, but let's just mention a couple of things over here. Obviously, it's extremely important, especially while contingencies are open. So your TC's job is actually to do that for you on your behalf. But you want to keep your finger on the trigger. You don't want to just let go and forget about the deal. You want to hold the TC accountable to keep you posted on what's happening with the deal. Top producers create systems and tools to help them in the process. We have RBO. Everything is registered in RBO. So you can just log into RBO and you can see where your deal is. The RBO is our software management, transaction software management, where you can actually see where the deal is, what's going on, and the TC will update it accordingly. Top producers hire other professionals to help them coordinate the closing process and make sure everything goes smoothly. We're talking here about having a transaction coordinator. At Circle100, we're offering you that for a very, very low cost. If you need to hire a TC part-time or full-time, that's a lot of money right there. I had one that I hired for a team, and I was paying $60,000 a year just for that. Again, you want to think like a business owner. And once you do 20 plus deals, it's time to hire somebody to help you. At Circle100, you don't need to do that because it's all included already in your TC arrangements. All right, understanding the selling process. We're talking about knowing every step in the selling process, explaining it. And here we're talking about sellers. So knowing the process and explaining it to the seller. The fact that the seller bought a house doesn't mean they know what it means to sell a house. It could be that they bought their first house 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and now they're selling their first house. You got to walk them through the process. Explain what it takes. We're putting your home on MLS. Then we're going to do some open houses. Then we're going to start doing showings. Then we're going to resume. So you have to explain the process to them. Once the sellers really understand the process, they feel more comfortable with it. Okay, and when the seller feels more comfortable, the selling process becomes more smooth and positive. You're going to have no surprises. Keep in touch and stay in touch with sellers is the #1 rule to get referral business. The process in 18 steps, the process of selling your listing, starting with getting a listing, advertising it, scheduling showings, getting seller's signature, verifying buyer's qualifications, negotiating offers, sending the contract to attorneys, getting out of attorney review, scheduling inspection, commitment letter, and all contingencies, negotiate contingencies if needs be, schedule closing, send a commission bill, pick up your check, send sold postcards, ask for referrals, and congratulate the sellers. Let's go over the entire process step by step. So the first thing you need to do is to get a listing. If you don't have a listing, there's nothing to sell. So when you're talking about the selling process with the seller, the first thing you got to do is get a listing. What needs to happen before you get a listing, we covered already in other videos. Number 2, when you get a listing, you have to promote it. Advertising it, websites, social media, prospecting, door knocking, postcards, open houses. So you got to do all that stuff. Actively looking for buyers, not just putting a sign out there and waiting. Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia has to be on, all 3. You need to have your own website. It needs to be on your website. Social media, you need to post your listings on social media. Going door knocking with an open house flyer and doing private invitations. We talked about that in a different video. Sending out postcards by mail. Conducting open houses. Brokers Open is the first one you should do, inviting other real estate agents in the area to come and take a look. And normally when you do Brokers Open, about a week after you have a contract. And that's, again, it depends on which market you're in. And it also depends on how you price the property, how well you price the property. Number 3, schedule showings until you get offers. After you start getting some offers, you negotiate the best deal for the seller. Again, you are a seller's agent. Seller's agents need to negotiate on the seller's behalf. Make sure that the buyer is qualified. How do you make sure that the buyer is qualified? You call the pre-approval letter. When you get the pre-approval letter with the offer, you're going to see who gave this pre-approval. You're going to contact this person, and you're going to verify that they actually did the pre-approval. Number 6, get the offer accepted by the seller. So you take the offers, you represent them to the seller. You negotiate with the seller. Seller tells you which one they want, or say you got 3 offers, the property price is 350. You got yourself a 325 or 330 and 335 with sales concession. You go to the seller representing the 3 offers. The seller tells you go back to everybody with the highest and best. You go back to them, they come back, then you represent the highest and best offer, and you get yourself into attorney review. Send contracts to both attorneys. That should be done from here on end. TC is taking care of the transaction. Sending contracts to both attorneys, getting it out of attorney review, helping to schedule inspection. Inspection is scheduled. You're going to go out there, to the property just to make sure that the inspector is not, destroying the property basically and writing stuff that makes no sense. You want to be there, just be there and listen into what's going on. 10, negotiate inspection contingencies, if any. Remember, this is your listing. So other agents represent the buyer. The buyer is going to negotiate with their own attorneys based on the list of inspection reports, come back and say, hey, we found out that the roof is in very bad condition and it needs to be replaced in the next 12 months. Therefore, we request $5,000 credit. You go back to your seller. You tell your seller, listen, the roof costs 15 grand. They're asking only 5. What do you want to do? Seller says, well, let's just give it to them. Then you go back to the attorneys. Attorneys negotiate the deal again, put it in writing that we're giving $5,000 credit. All that stuff is happening when you're in contract, but the contract is not solid until it's out of inspection contingencies and all other contingencies has been resolved. Next step. Make sure all contingencies are finished. 12, make sure a commitment letter is given from the bank. Then you're going to schedule the closing. Now, obviously, you're not representing the buyer on this deal. There's no reason to call the appraiser. That should be done by the buyer agent, but you need to be in touch with the buyer agent, or your TC should be in touch with them to schedule the actual appraisal appointment. Once that's scheduled, you can go there again and give the comps, have a conversation with the appraiser if you wanted to do that. I mean, some agents don't want to do that, so they don't. It depends on the situation. If the property is on the comps, on your CMA, if it shows that the property is worth more than the contract price, there's no issue with the appraiser in most cases. If the actual CMA shows that the property is worth 325, but you got yourself a contract at 345, you might have an issue. So you got to find some comps to back up the contract price. 14, send commission bill to the attorneys. Should be done by the TC. And then go pick up your check. I would normally have them just mail it. I'm not going there to pick it up. 16, congratulate the sellers, hand deliver a gift or take them out to dinner to celebrate the closing. 17, you put the seller on a past client center of influence list and you ask them for referrals. And then at 18, you want to mail or hand deliver a just sold postcard. What do I mean hand deliver? Door knocking. Now, the best thing to do here is to take 500 homes in the radius of this house, 500 homes around this house, and just mail them a just sold postcard with your name on it, with your face on it, with your brand on it. Okay. Also, you want to blast that on social media. You want to register the transaction on MLS, obviously, change the status to sold. And that's it. You got yourself listing sold. Why you should focus on listings? We spoke about this many times. Let's just touch one more time this subject. Since listing properties is less time consuming, like a lot less time consuming, 15 to 20 hours on a buyer deal and just about 5 hours on a listing deal. Top producers focus on listing properties instead of working with buyers. As a seller agent, there are much less to-do items than when you represent a buyer. When you have a listing, you will normally have the upper hand in negotiations. If it's a seller's market, if it's a buyer's market, it's not going to be like that. On a buyer's market, the buyer has the upper hand. The listing side of the deal is much easier to automate and have someone else manage it for you. That is by far one of the main reasons I became a listing agent, and I reduced dramatically the amount of buyers I worked with. When you get the listings, the buyers come to you, so you don't need to chase buyers. All right, so that is step 17, phase 17. I'm going to open up the microphone now for some questions.